A flawless Egyptian wig was a masterpiece of daily devotion. We are pulling back the curtain on the ancient beauty rituals that kept these iconic pieces pristine for pharaohs and nobles. By the end, you will possess the complete guide to their sophisticated maintenance, a system rivaling modern care. How did they combat pests without modern chemicals, and what sacred oils made their presence known before they even entered a room? What does it truly take to maintain a symbol of power for a lifetime? These intricate hairpieces were far more than simple vanity. In the scorching Egyptian sun, a shaved head was practical, offering cleanliness and relief from the heat, but appearing in public without a wig was unthinkable. Your wig was your social resume, a visible declaration of who you were and the power you held. A common laborer might wear a simple, short cap of twisted plant fibers, while a noblewoman's wig could cascade in hundreds of tight, elaborate braids, each strand a testament to her family's wealth. The materials themselves spoke volumes. Wigs made from human hair, often imported at great cost, were the ultimate luxury, reserved for the elite who could afford such a statement. Those of sheep's wool or date palm fibers marked a more modest station in life, but the message went even deeper than class. Priests, for instance, were required to wear specific, undecorated wigs during sacred rituals to maintain a state of purity, a stark contrast to the royal court. Imagine a pharaoh entering the room, their wig not just of the finest hair, but intricately woven with threads of gold and tiny beads of turquoise and lapis lazuli. This was a crown and a cultural emblem fused into one. The gleam of precious metals and stones in the sunlight was a deliberate display of divine authority, a walking symbol of their connection to the gods. This profound cultural weight is precisely why maintenance was not a chore, but a sacred duty. Allowing such a powerful symbol to become tangled, infested, or damaged would be a profound social and spiritual failure. So how did they protect these vital possessions from the relentless threats of daily life? The answer lies in a sophisticated, daily battle against nature itself. The very fibers of an Egyptian wig held the secrets to its longevity. While we might picture all wigs as being made of human hair, the reality was far more diverse and dictated by both wealth and purpose. For the elite, nothing compared to the luxury of real human hair, often imported from lands like Syria or acquired through tribute. This hair was prized for its natural sheen and ability to hold intricate styles, but it was also the most demanding material to maintain, requiring constant attention to prevent it from becoming dry and brittle under the harsh sun. A high priest or a vizier would have a wig of this finest hair. Knowing its perfect appearance was a direct reflection of their status. For those of more modest means, sheep's wool offered a practical alternative. It was more readily available and could be styled into the tight, curly locks popular in certain periods, but it had a coarser texture and was prone to matting if not carefully managed. Then there were the wigs crafted from the plant world. Date palm fibers and strips of papyrus reed were woven into sturdy, lightweight hairpieces. These plant-based wigs were incredibly resilient and required less intensive care, making them a common choice for laborers or for use in the humid environments of daily life. The material was a clear signal. A wig of gleaming, imported human hair whispered of vast resources and connections, while one of neatly coiled palm fibers spoke of practicality and a specific place in society. This fundamental choice of straw, wool, or hair set the entire stage for its care. The maintenance ritual for a queen's elaborate human hairpiece would be a world apart from the routine for a scribe's sturdy plant fiber cap. Understanding this material foundation is the first step to unlocking the ancient methods that kept these symbols of identity vibrant for a lifetime. Beneath the flowing locks and intricate braids lay a hidden architecture of pure ingenuity. An Egyptian wig was engineered, not just styled. Its foundation was a tight, breathable net cap, meticulously crafted from the finest linen threads or resilient date palm fibers. This netting was the unsung hero of the entire structure. Imagine a delicate, custom-fitted helmet covered in a grid of tiny open squares. Each section of this grid became an anchor point. Strands of hair, whether human, wool, or plant fiber, were not simply glued or tied on in a single mass. Instead, they were carefully stitched or woven directly into these individual netting sections. This modular construction was a stroke of genius for both comfort and care. Those small gaps between the stitched bundles allowed air to circulate freely over the scalp, a critical feature in the relentless Egyptian heat. More importantly for its preservation, this design prevented the entire hairpiece from matting into one solid, tangled mess. If one small section of hair became damaged or loose, a craftsperson could carefully unstitch and replace just that part, leaving the rest of the wig perfectly intact. Some of the most elaborate court wigs took this further, building up volume with multiple layers of netting, each supporting a different level of curls or braids. This entire anatomy dictated its maintenance. You could not simply dunk a complex, layered piece in water. Cleaning had to be a delicate, section-by-section process. The very gaps that provided ventilation also allowed for gentle cleaning agents to be applied without soaking the delicate foundation, and they gave pests no single, dense mass of hair to call home. The way these wigs were built from the ground up reveals a profound understanding of durability, hygiene, and repairability. A single grain of desert sand, ground into the delicate fibers of a wig, could act like a tiny blade, slowly sawing through strands with every movement. This is why the daily ritual of combing was a non-negotiable act of preservation. The ancient Egyptians approached this task with tools that were both simple and elegant. A typical comb was a personal object, often carved from wood, ivory, or bone, and designed with brilliant practicality. It featured two distinct sides, one with widely spaced, coarse teeth, and the other with fine, closely set teeth. The technique was everything. You would never just drag a comb from the scalp downward through long hair. Instead, the process began gently at the very tips of the strands, carefully working out any small knots or tangles first. Only after the ends were perfectly smooth would you move a little higher up the hair, gradually combing through section by section until you finally reached the base at the net cap. This method, starting low and moving up, prevented massive snarls that could rip and break the precious hair. To make this process even smoother, they applied a few drops of natural oils like castor or moringa oil. These oils acted as a conditioning detangler, allowing the comb to glide through while also adding a soft sheen and a subtle, pleasant fragrance to the hair. This daily grooming was far more than a chore. It was a moment of focused care. As the comb moved through the hair, it did more than just align the strands. It physically scraped away the fine dust and sand carried on the desert wind, and it dislodged any tiny, unwanted pests like lice before they could settle in. The combs themselves were treated with respect, often stored in small linen bags or decorative boxes to keep them clean and safe when not in use. For the elite, this ritual was a social performance. A noblewoman would not typically comb her own elaborate wig. This intimate task fell to a trusted servant or a family member, a moment of connection and service that reinforced social bonds. To have your hair combed was a sign of status and trust, transforming a practical maintenance step into a meditative, almost sacred, part of the daily routine. The gentle glide of the comb was only the first step in a truly immersive sensory experience. An Egyptian wig was not merely clean, it was fragrant, a walking garden of exquisite scents that announced its wearer long before they stepped into view. They achieved this through sophisticated hair pomades, carefully crafted from scented oils and fats. Base ingredients like rich moringa oil or rendered animal fat were gently warmed, then infused for days or even weeks with precious botanical essences. The goal was to capture the very soul of the flower or resin. Imagine the heady, sweet aroma of blue lotus, the delicate freshness of lily, or the deep, spiritual fragrance of frankincense and myrrh, all slowly melding into a solid, waxy balm. Application was a ritual in itself. A small amount of this scented pomade would be warmed in the palms of the hands until it softened. Then, using a gentle massaging motion, it was worked meticulously into the wig's fibers, from the roots anchored in the net cap out to the very tips of the strands. This ensured every part of the hairpiece received its share of fragrance and conditioning. The effect was transformative. The oils imparted a luxurious, healthy sheen to the hair, making it gleam in the sunlight, while the fats helped to keep the strands supple and prevent the brittle dryness caused by the arid climate. But this practice was as practical as it was luxurious. The strong, aromatic oils acted as a natural insect repellent, creating a fragrant barrier that discouraged lice and other pests from taking up residence. For a high-ranking official moving through the crowded halls of the palace, their scented wig was a multi-layered statement. It was a mark of immense personal wealth, as these ingredients were costly imports. It was a display of divine favor, as many scents like frankincense were used in temple rituals. And on the most human level, it was a simple, elegant way to remain pleasant in a world without modern deodorants. The air around them would be perfumed with luxury, a clear signal of their refined status and meticulous self-care. How did they then cleanse these oil-treated masterpieces without damaging their delicate structure? Even the most fragrant and well-combed wig was vulnerable at night. All that meticulous daytime care could be undone by a single restless sleeper. To protect these masterpieces, the Egyptians engineered a brilliant, and perhaps uncomfortable, solution. The headrest was not a soft pillow as we know it, but a sturdy cradle for both the head and the hairstyle, carved from wood, or for the wealthy from cool alabaster or gleaming ivory. These objects had a distinct curved platform designed to support the neck. The key was the gap it created. When a person lay down, their elaborate wig would rest suspended in the air, its intricate curls and braids completely untouched by the sleeping surface. This prevented the weight of the head from crushing the style and stopped the fibers from rubbing against a linen sheet, which would cause friction, tangling, and static. Imagine a noblewoman retiring for the evening. Her servant would carefully remove the wig and place it on a dedicated stand, or the noblewoman herself would lie back, her neck nestled on the curved headrest, her wig perfectly elevated like a treasured sculpture. This practice was so essential that headrests were often included among the grave goods for the afterlife, ensuring the deceased would always be perfectly coiffed. For journeys, the protection had to be even more robust. A wig traveling in a bag would be a disaster, arriving at its destination as a matted, shapeless mess. Instead, they used custom wooden boxes, lined with soft, undyed linen. Before being placed inside, the wig would be gently wrapped in another linen cloth, creating a protective cocoon. The snug interior of the box prevented the piece from jostling during transport, keeping every braid in its intended place and every curl perfectly sprung. These boxes were the ancient equivalent of a professional stylist's travel case, safeguarding a vital personal asset. This nightly and mobile vigilance was the final, critical layer of defense. It ensured that the hours spent combing and anointing were not wasted, allowing a single, well-made wig to maintain its perfect form for years, always ready to make its powerful statement. The lingering fragrance of scented oils, while divine, created a very practical problem over time. That protective, fragrant pomade would eventually mix with sweat and the ever-present desert dust, forming a grimy buildup that could dull the wig's luster and attract dirt. Submerging such a complex piece in water was unthinkable, as it could ruin the delicate net foundation and cause plant fibers to rot. Their solution was a dry cleaning method of pure genius, using a special absorbent paste. The primary ingredient was natron, a natural salt harvested from dry lake beds. This miraculous substance was the same used in mummification to draw moisture from tissues, and it worked on wigs with the same gentle power. For those without access to natron, a fine clay or even sifted ash from the fire could serve a similar purpose. The process was meticulous. A servant would first mix the natron powder with just enough water to form a thick, spreadable paste. They would then take small amounts of this paste and work it section by section through the wig's fibers, starting from the base and moving outward. They used their fingers to gently massage the mixture deep into the hair, ensuring it contacted the oily net cap and every strand. This was not a rushed job. The paste was then left to sit on the wig for a short while, perhaps as the wearer bathed or attended to other morning rituals. During this time, the natron or clay acted like a microscopic sponge, drawing the oils and grime out of the hair and into itself. The final step was a thorough but careful rinsing. The wig would be taken outside, where a servant would use a jug of clean water, often drawn directly from the life-giving Nile, to gently pour over the hair. They would tilt the wig at different angles, allowing the water to flow through the strands and carry the now dirty paste away. This rinsing was repeated until the water ran clear, leaving behind no residue. The wig was then set aside in the shade to air dry completely, its fibers left feeling clean, refreshed, and restored, ready to receive a new application of precious scented oil. The frequency of this entire ritual was a direct reflection of life itself. A priest performing daily temple ceremonies might have his wig cleansed every few days to maintain ritual purity. A noblewoman residing in a dusty palace courtyard might require a weekly treatment, while a laborer, drenched in sweat, might need this care even more often. This delicate balance kept the wig immaculate without ever stripping its fibers completely bare, preserving both its beauty and its structural integrity for years on end. That final rinse with Nile water left the wig perfectly clean, yet strangely vulnerable. Stripped of its protective oils, the fibers were now at the mercy of the dry, relentless climate, prone to becoming brittle and unmanageable. This is where the ancient artisans revealed their true genius for nourishment, turning to the pantry of nature itself for a solution. The key was to restore what the cleansing had taken away, using a library of natural conditioners that would feel familiar even in our modern world. Castor oil was a superstar, prized for its thick, viscous texture that deeply penetrated each hair strand, sealing in moisture and adding a brilliant, heavy shine. For a lighter touch, they might choose almond oil, which absorbed quickly without leaving a greasy feel, perfect for maintaining softness and preventing flyaways. But the true secret weapon was honey. This golden, sticky substance is a natural humectant, meaning it actively draws moisture from the air and locks it into the hair. Imagine a high-ranking courtier preparing for a major festival. After the natron cleanse, their servant would prepare a special treatment. They might mix a few spoonfuls of rich honey with a base of almond oil, creating a luxurious, golden paste. This mixture would be carefully worked through the wig, from the roots anchored in the net cap all the way to the ends, ensuring every single fiber was coated. For a routine conditioning, this might be left on for an hour or two, but for a truly transformative, deep treatment, perhaps before a coronation or sacred ceremony, the wig would be wrapped in a soft linen cloth and left to rest overnight. As the wearer slept, the honey and oil worked in concert, plumping the hair with moisture and restoring its lost elasticity, so it would be lush, supple, and radiant by morning. For wigs made of more challenging materials, the recipes became even more specialized. Sheep's wool wigs, which could become particularly dry and coarse, often received a treatment of rendered goose fat. This animal fat provided an intense, occlusive layer of moisture that plant-based oils could not match, softening the rough wool fibers and making them far easier to comb and style. The application was a ritual of patience and precision. A small amount of the chosen conditioner was warmed between the palms, then massaged gently into small sections of the wig. This methodical approach guaranteed no spot was missed, preserving the intricate styling while ensuring the entire structure received its vital nourishment. This ancient practice of deep conditioning, using recipes of oil, honey, and fat, mirrors our own modern hair masks almost exactly. It was a profound understanding that true beauty required not just cleansing, but active, restorative feeding. The goal was always the same, a wig that did not just look healthy, but felt alive to the touch, moving with a soft, natural sway that belied its carefully constructed form. Even the most nourished and fragrant wig was not a fortress. It was a potential home, a warm, sheltered environment that could attract the most persistent of ancient pests, lice. In the crowded, warm conditions of Egyptian cities and villages, these tiny insects were a constant threat, and an infestation in your wig was more than just an itchy nuisance. It was a profound social embarrassment. A noble scratching their head in court would be seen as unclean, their personal neglect casting a shadow on their entire household. So how did they fight this invisible war without our modern chemical arsenal? Their first and most reliable line of defense was the humble comb, but used with a specific, targeted purpose. After the general detangling with the coarser side, they would switch to the fine-toothed side, often made of wood or bone so finely carved the gaps were nearly invisible. This was the delousing comb. They would draw this comb through small, methodical sections of the wig, from the scalp netting all the way down to the ends. The incredibly tight spacing of the teeth acted like a microscopic gate, allowing clean hair to pass through but physically scraping the lice and their tiny, glued-on eggs, called nits, from the strands. After each pass, the comb would be carefully inspected and wiped clean on a cloth before moving to the next section. This was a slow, painstaking process, but it was remarkably effective for removing an existing problem. For prevention, they turned to the plant kingdom's natural repellents. They understood that certain powerful scents, while pleasant to humans, were intolerable to insects. One of their most potent weapons was neem oil, pressed from the seeds of the neem tree. This oil has a strong, bitter, garlic-like odor that acts as a powerful insect deterrent. A few drops of neem oil massaged into the wig's base created a fragrant barrier that lice would actively avoid. For those without access to neem, a paste made from crushed thyme leaves or chrysanthemum flowers offered a similar solution. The strong herbal essence of thyme and the natural insecticidal compounds in chrysanthemums, known as pyrethrins, made the wig an unwelcoming environment. A servant might prepare this by grinding fresh thyme into a paste with a little water or oil, then applying it section by section, letting it sit for a short while before the wig was gently rinsed. This regular inspection and treatment was a non-negotiable part of wig ownership, as essential as combing. For a priest, it was a matter of ritual purity, ensuring no unclean creature was present during ceremonies. For a mother, it was about protecting her entire family from the spread of pests in their close living quarters. A perfectly maintained wig was a sign of a well-ordered life, a visible commitment to health and social grace, where even the smallest, most persistent threats were kept firmly at bay. That final defense against pests extended into the very place a wig rested between wearings. Storage was not a mere afterthought. It was a critical act of preservation, a silent ritual that ensured a wig's shape and luster endured for years, even generations. When not adorning its owner, the wig required a sanctuary, a carefully controlled environment shielded from the elements. Sunlight was a sworn enemy. The relentless Egyptian sun, so vital for life, could be devastating to a wig, its ultraviolet rays bleaching the rich color from human hair and steadily degrading the fibers, making them brittle and weak. To counter this, wigs were always stored in cool, dark spaces, within the mud brick walls of a home or the depths of a tomb, far from any direct light. The containers themselves were masterpieces of practical design. For a common laborer, a simple box woven from reeds or palm leaves might suffice, but for the elite, a dedicated wooden chest was essential. Crafted from acacia or imported cedar, these chests were more than just boxes. They were microenvironments. The interior was often lined with undyed linen for softness, and the real secret lay in a bottom layer of aromatic cedar shavings or bundles of dried lavender, mint, or thyme. These fragrant materials did double duty. They filled the storage space with a pleasant, fresh scent, but more importantly, their potent essential oils acted as a powerful, natural repellent against moths, beetles, and other insects that might see the wig as a perfect meal or nesting ground. The wig's placement inside this chest was a science of its own. Simply folding or crushing the piece was unthinkable. For the most elaborate, multi-layered court wigs, a custom wooden stand was used right inside the chest. The wig would be placed on this stand, allowing its full volume and intricate curls to remain perfectly suspended, untouched by any surface. This prevented the weight of the hair from pulling the style out of shape and stopped the delicate net cap from being crushed. For simpler styles or during travel, the wig would be gently stuffed with soft, rolled linen cloths. These internal supports helped the piece retain its intended silhouette, ensuring it did not flatten or collapse during long periods of stillness. Every time the chest lid was closed, it was an act of faith in the future, a promise that the next time the wig was needed, it would emerge as flawless as the day it was stored. This meticulous, thoughtful approach to storage reveals a profound truth about the ancient Egyptians. They were not just maintaining an object, they were stewarding a legacy, preserving a vital piece of their identity for the life to come. A loose thread or a missing braid was not the end of a wig's life, but a call to action. These masterpieces were built with repair in mind from their very foundation. The same net cap that provided ventilation and prevented matting also made surgical restoration possible. An artisan, often a specialist with incredibly steady hands, would begin by carefully assessing the damage under good light. For a wig of human hair, a common issue was a few strands coming loose from their stitching on the net base. The solution was delicate reweaving, using a fine needle carved from bone or ivory, and a thread spun from the finest linen. The craftsperson would meticulously re-anchor the loose hairs back into their original square of the net. The goal was not just to reattach them, but to mimic the exact tension and direction of the surrounding strands, making the repair completely invisible to the eye. For more significant damage, like a whole section of braids frayed by constant friction against a heavy collar, the approach was more radical. The damaged portion would be carefully unstitched and removed from the net cap. Then, using a matching bundle of hair from the owner's own supply, or from a donor wig of the same color and texture, a new, identical section would be crafted and stitched into the vacant space. The true artistry lay in blending this new hair with the old. The artisan might lightly coat the entire wig with a conditioning oil to give both the new and old strands a uniform sheen, or use a specialized comb to gently intermingle the fibers at the edges of the repair, ensuring a seamless transition. For wigs made of plant fibers, the repair techniques were different but just as clever. Date palm fibers could become brittle and snap. Instead of stitching, the artisan would dampen the broken fibers with a little water, making them pliable once more. They could then be twisted back together or woven around a healthy neighboring fiber for support, much like splicing a rope. The entire area might then be lightly coated with a thin resin to hold the mend in place once it dried. This resourcefulness meant that a high-quality wig was not a disposable item. It was a long-term investment, maintained and renewed over decades. A noblewoman might wear the same elaborate court wig for major festivals year after year. Its hair subtly replaced section by section until very little of the original remained, yet its iconic style and personal history lived on. This commitment to repair speaks to a deeper value, a profound respect for the object itself and the powerful identity it projected. The comb was a guardian of order, but true artistic expression required a sculptor's toolkit. Beyond detangling, a servant's hands would reach for an array of specialized tools to build the iconic silhouettes of Egyptian fashion. Among the most vital were hairpins, deceptively simple yet crucial for architectural stability. Carved from wood or bone for commoners, or fashioned from gleaming bronze and even gold for the elite, these pins were the hidden scaffolding of every elaborate style. A cascade of tight braids was not left to swing freely. Each one was carefully anchored at the nape of the neck, or woven back into the main body of the wig with these discreet fasteners. This prevented the style from unraveling throughout a long day of ceremonies, and kept heavy braids from pulling uncomfortably on the delicate net cap. For creating texture and volume, the ancient stylists turned to heat. They used curling rods, likely bronze rods heated in a small brazier until they were warm to the touch, not scalding hot. A small section of the wig's hair would be wrapped around the rod, and the heat would set the hair into a springy, resilient curl that would last for days. This technique allowed them to build the full, bouncy ringlets and elaborate corkscrew curls seen in so many statues and tomb paintings, styles that defied the flat, lifeless look of untreated fibers. With these tools in hand, they could construct the era's most famous looks. The tripartite wig was a classic, divided into 3 distinct sections, 2 that fell over the shoulders and 1 down the back. This required meticulous sectioning with pins to keep the parts clean and defined. For a more dramatic, voluminous effect, the Nubian-style wig, with its dense, rounded mass of tight curls covering the head and ears, would have been a masterpiece of the curling rod, each curl carefully set and then pinned into its perfect place within the overall shape. This daily styling ritual was the final, visible result of all that hidden maintenance. A wig could be perfectly clean, conditioned, and pest-free, but without these tools and techniques, it would lack the powerful, intentional statement that was its entire reason for being. The act of styling transformed a maintained object into a living piece of cultural identity. ready to project its message of power, beauty, and status to the world. For a priest preparing to enter the inner sanctum, the purity of his wig was as vital as the words of his prayer. This was not a matter of simple vanity, but a sacred requirement for approaching the gods. A ritually impure hairpiece could nullify an entire ceremony, offending the very deities they sought to honor. The maintenance of a priestly wig was therefore a rigid, prescribed ritual, far more demanding than the care given to even the most elaborate court piece. Its cleansing began not with simple pastes, but with the most sacred of substances. Natron, the same purifying salt used to preserve the bodies of the pharaohs for eternity, was the only acceptable cleaning agent. This material was believed to draw out impurity on a spiritual level, not just a physical one. The water used for the final rinse was not drawn from a common household jar. It was specifically collected from a sacred lake within the temple complex, water considered a direct emanation of the primordial ocean of creation. Every step was a deliberate act of consecration. Handling such a powerful object was restricted to a chosen few. The high priest himself might perform this ritual, or it might fall to a specific, purified attendant whose sole duty was the care of these sacred vestments. Before even touching the wig, this individual would undergo their own purification, bathing, and perhaps even reciting short incantations to cleanse themselves of any negative influence. The wig itself was never stored with personal items. It resided in its own dedicated space within the temple precinct, often a special niche in a locked chest, kept separate from the profane world. This physical separation reinforced its sacred nature, ensuring it remained a vessel for divine connection, untouched by everyday life. The act of grooming itself could be accompanied by soft-spoken prayers or incantations. As the fine-toothed comb passed through each section of hair, the priest might whisper a hymn to a deity, perhaps asking for clarity of speech or purity of heart. This transformed a practical task into a meditative practice, weaving spiritual intention directly into the fibers of the wig. Each stroke of the comb was not just detangling hair, but straightening the path to the gods, ensuring no spiritual obstruction remained. The application of scented oil was equally symbolic. Instead of choosing a fragrance for personal appeal, the priest would anoint the wig with oils specified for the particular deity they were serving, like the finest myrrh for Ra or the sacred lotus for Osiris. The goal was to create an offering of perfect, fragrant order, a pleasing presence that the gods would find acceptable. In this context, a single stray pest or a speck of dust was more than dirt, it was chaos, a tiny fragment of disorder that could not be permitted in the presence of Maat, the divine balance of the universe. The meticulous care of the ritual wig was, therefore, the ultimate expression of devotion, a physical demonstration of the order and purity the priest sought to embody and present to the cosmos. The gleaming golden wig of a pharaoh was a universe away from the humble fiber cap of a field hand, and their care reflected that chasm. For royalty, wig maintenance was a team effort overseen by a dedicated wig master, a trusted artisan whose sole responsibility was the integrity of these symbolic treasures. This specialist commanded a small army of assistants, each with a specific task. One servant's only job might be the daily ritual of combing, using an ivory comb to work precious imported castor oil through every strand. Another would be in charge of the aromatic blends, meticulously infusing moringa oil with frankincense, a scent so costly it was a verbal declaration of the king's divine right. Their tools were equally extravagant, from alabaster pots for storing unguents to headrests carved from ebony and inlaid with turquoise, ensuring the royal coif, you never touched a common surface. The entire process was slow, methodical, and protected from any rush, a daily performance of power and privilege. Contrast this with the reality for a farmer or a potter. Their simple wig, woven from date palm fiber or reeds, was a tool for daily life, not a symbol of state. There was no wig master, only the wearer themselves or a family member snatching a few moments at the end of a long, sweaty day. Their comb was likely a simple, unadorned piece of wood, and their conditioning agent might be nothing more than a bit of common animal fat, if anything was used at all. The luxurious natron paste cleanse was an unimaginable extravagance. For them, cleaning was a swift, practical affair. Perhaps a quick rinse with Nile water, and a vigorous scrubbing with a paste of plain river clay or ash to cut through the grime of labor. Their storage was a shaded spot in a mud brick home or a simple reed box, with dried local herbs like mint serving as both fragrance and pest deterrent, a far cry from the imported cedar shavings of the elite. This stark difference in care was a direct mirror of Egyptian society. The pharaoh's wig, with its team of attendants and priceless ingredients, was a display of economic power so vast that it could dedicate significant resources solely to the preservation of an appearance. Its flawless condition was a political statement, proof of a kingdom in perfect order. For the commoner, a well-kept wig was a personal victory, a small triumph of practicality and pride over the harsh realities of their environment. They shared the same goal, a clean, presentable, and functional hairpiece, but the paths they walked to achieve it were carved by the unyielding stone of social class. The very rhythm of maintenance, from the leisurely, fragrant anointing in the palace to the hurried, utilitarian scrub by the river, echoed the profound divide between the one who ruled the land and those who worked it. The rhythm of wig care was not fixed but flowed with the turning seasons. In the blistering heat of summer, when the desert air sucked moisture from everything it touched, a wig demanded vigilant protection. The very fibers, whether human hair or plant, were in constant danger of becoming brittle and snapping under the dry onslaught. This was the time for rich, frequent anointing. A servant might apply a thicker, more emollient oil like castor oil every single day, working it deep into the net cap and along each strand to create a protective seal against the parching winds. The goal was to keep the hair supple, preventing the static and flyaways that betrayed a desiccated piece. Yet when the cooler, more humid winter months arrived along the Nile, this same routine would become a liability. Too much heavy oil in the damp air would leave a wig limp, greasy, and prone to collecting dust and grime. The seasonal intelligence went even deeper than conditioning frequency. A practical individual might actually own 2 wigs, strategically rotating them like a wardrobe. For the intense summer heat, a lightweight, breathable wig made of human hair or woven plant fibers was the obvious choice. These materials allowed for maximum air circulation over the scalp, providing crucial comfort. But when the chill of winter set in, that same person might switch to a denser, warmer wig crafted from sheep's wool. This woolen cap acted as a natural insulator, trapping body heat and keeping the wearer comfortable during the cooler days and cold nights. This adaptive approach reveals a nuanced understanding of material science. They knew that wool, while warm, could become heavy and matted if oiled too heavily in damp conditions, so its winter care would involve lighter, less frequent applications of almond oil. Conversely, a plant fiber wig used in summer needed that heavy, daily oiling not just for shine, but for survival, to prevent it from drying out and crumbling to dust. This was not guesswork, it was accumulated, generational knowledge. A mother would teach her daughter to feel the wig's texture and observe the humidity in the air, adjusting the care recipe accordingly. This mindful, seasonal dance between the wearer, their wigs, and the environment ensured that this vital piece of their identity remained in flawless condition, comfortable to wear, and visually stunning, no matter what the Egyptian climate brought. A flawless black wig was not always the final word in ancient Egyptian style. The very process of maintaining these hairpieces opened a door to personalization, where color became a tool for expression and even a way to turn back time. Gray hairs, a sign of age and experience, were not always embraced. For those wishing to present a more youthful or vibrant appearance, the Egyptians turned to the rich, earthy power of natural dyes. Henna was their superstar, a reddish-brown pigment derived from the crushed leaves of the Lawsonia plant. To use it, a servant would grind the dried henna leaves into a fine powder, then mix it with a little water or a mild acidic liquid like lemon juice to form a thick, mud-like paste. This paste was then carefully applied section by section to the wig, working it from the roots out to the tips to ensure every gray strand was saturated. The wig would then be left to rest, sometimes wrapped in linen, for several hours. The longer the paste remained, the deeper and more permanent the reddish-brown stain would become. But this was far more than a simple coloring job. Henna is a natural conditioner, and as it sat on the hair, It smoothed the cuticles and added strength and body, leaving the wig not just a new color, but feeling thicker and healthier. For those desiring darker, more dramatic shades, the palette expanded. Indigo, extracted from another plant, could be layered over henna to create rich browns and deep, intense blacks. Others used powdered minerals like galena, a dark lead ore, to achieve a sleek, metallic sheen. This was not a one-note process. A creative individual might use these dyes to add stylish accents. They could apply henna in thin stripes to create subtle, sun-kissed highlights, or use a thicker paste to dye only the very ends of their braids, a contrasting russet tone. The application itself could be an art form, using carved stamps or freehand techniques to create temporary patterns on the wig's surface, a fleeting expression of individuality that would wash out after a few cleansings. This fusion of maintenance and beauty treatment reveals a sophisticated beauty culture. The act of coloring a wig was never just about vanity. It was a practical step in its preservation, conditioning the fibers while simultaneously renewing its vibrant appearance. It allowed a person to control their narrative, to present an ageless, powerful self to the world, all while using the very same natural pantry that healed their bodies and adorned their skin. How did these meticulously maintained symbols transition from the world of the living into the eternal realm of the tomb? That final journey into the tomb reveals one of the most intimate aspects of Egyptian life, the care they extended to their youngest members. Even children wore these symbolic hairpieces, with the most iconic being the side lock of youth. This was not a full wig, but a single, heavy braid worn at the side of an otherwise shaved head, often cleverly integrated into a small, lightweight wig cap. This lock was far more than a simple hairstyle. It was a powerful badge of childhood. A boy wearing it was marked as under the protection of the gods, particularly the youthful deity Horus, and not yet subject to the full responsibilities of adulthood. Its presence signaled innocence and a specific place within the family and society. The maintenance of this small, precious wig was a ritual of pure tenderness. A mother would not use the strong, heavily scented oils of the adult world. Instead, she reached for the mildest ingredients in her pantry. A few drops of light, sweet almond oil, or the gentlest balm of moringa would be warmed in her hands. Her touch was everything, combing through the delicate braid with a fine-toothed wooden comb, starting from the very tip and working upward with infinite patience to avoid any tugging on her child's sensitive scalp. This was not a chore delegated to a servant, it was a moment of profound connection. As she combed, she might tell stories of the gods, explaining the significance of the lock her child wore, or simply share the quiet intimacy of the evening. The act reinforced the bond between mother and child, while simultaneously imparting a lesson in personal care and social tradition. A young girl would watch her mother maintain her own elaborate wigs, then feel those same gentle hands caring for her smaller piece, learning through experience the rhythms and respect these objects demanded. This gentle, daily grooming prepared the child for the day the side lock would finally be cut off in a grand ceremony, marking their passage into adulthood. The careful preservation of that small wig was a physical manifestation of a mother's love, nurturing both the child and the symbol, ensuring both were prepared for their next great step in life. A golden ribbon woven through a braid was never just a decoration. It was a sentence in a silent language of status and celebration. The maintenance of a wig extended far beyond its fibers to the precious objects that adorned it, each requiring its own specialized care. Gold threads and delicate ribbons were not permanently fixed. They were carefully stitched onto the net cap with fine linen thread, allowing them to be gently unstitched and removed before the wig underwent its natron paste cleansing. Leaving a golden ribbon or a string of faience beads on during a cleaning would tarnish the metal and cause the delicate ceramic beads to become brittle. Imagine a servant's hands, meticulously untying a scented fat cone from its anchor point or sliding a fresh lotus blossom from its pin, placing each precious item into its own soft linen pouch. These adornments were stored separately from the wig itself, often in small, compartmentalized boxes within the main wig chest, nestled alongside dried lavender to keep moths away from the organic materials. The care for these objects was a ritual in itself. A gold ribbon would be polished with a soft cloth, while beads were wiped clean of the day's oils and dust. A scented cone, that clever slow-release perfume system made of animal fat and fragrant resins, was a temporary masterpiece. It could not be reused, but a new one would be crafted for the next grand event, its recipe and application a closely guarded secret of the household. The presence or absence of these adornments spoke volumes. A married woman might weave a specific golden band through her wig as a public symbol of her union, while a feast called for the vibrant splash of fresh cornflowers and poppies. To let a symbol of marital status become tarnished, or a celebratory flower wilt on its pin, was to neglect the very message the wig was meant to broadcast. Maintaining the adornment was, therefore, as vital as maintaining the hair, preserving the full power of this walking, talking emblem of a life. Even the most diligently maintained wig could fall victim to the whims of the Egyptian climate. Humidity from the Nile's annual flood brought a frustrating enemy, frizz. That perfectly sleek style could, in a matter of hours, blossom into a fuzzy, unkempt mess. Their solution was as ingenious as it was simple, a light application of beeswax. A servant would take a small amount of this natural wax, warm it between their palms until it became pliable, and then gently smooth it over the surface of the wig, focusing on the flyaways and the outer layer of hair. This created a lightweight, flexible seal that locked in the style and repelled the moisture-laden air, taming the frizz without leaving the hair stiff or sticky. It was the ancient equivalent of a modern anti-frizz serum, a quick fix to restore order and shine. Another frequent issue was the inevitable droop. Elaborate curls, set with heated rods, would eventually lose their spring over days of wear. You would not simply reapply heat to dry hair, as this could damage the fibers. Instead, they employed a technique still used by stylists today. They would lightly mist the curls with a fine spray of water, perhaps using a dampened linen cloth, to reintroduce moisture and make the hair pliable again. Then, using a warm, not hot, bronze rod, they would recurl those sections, setting the shape once more. This combination of dampness and gentle heat revived the style perfectly, ensuring those iconic corkscrew curls remained bouncy and defined. But perhaps the most socially damning problem was an unpleasant odor. A wig that had absorbed weeks of sweat and fragrant oils could eventually develop a stale, sour smell, a sure sign of neglect. A full natron cleanse was the ultimate solution, but for a quicker refresh between deep cleanings, they turned to scented powders. These were often simple mixtures of finely ground natron, orris root, and crushed dried flowers like lavender or rose petals. A servant would sprinkle this powder throughout the wig's base, then gently comb it through. The powder would absorb excess oil and odor, while the floral essences left behind a fresh, clean fragrance. This routine troubleshooting feels remarkably familiar, a direct through line from ancient vanity tables to our modern bathrooms. The same fundamental desires for smooth, styled, and fresh-smelling hair have persisted for millennia, and the solutions they crafted from beeswax, water, and scented powders speak to a timeless human ingenuity in the face of everyday beauty challenges. A pharaoh's perfectly scented wig was a map of the ancient world, drawn in oil and resin. Egypt's vast trade networks stretched across deserts and seas, funneling exotic ingredients directly into the beauty rituals of the elite. Common farmers relied on local castor oil and river clay, but for those at the pinnacle of society, maintenance was an international affair. The most coveted prize was the sacred myrrh and frankincense resin from the fabled land of Punt, a place so remote its exact location remains one of history's great puzzles. Egyptian expeditions would sail down the Red Sea, returning with holds full of these fragrant treasures. For wig care, this was a revolution. Frankincense, when ground and infused into a base of moringa oil, created a pomade with a deep, spiritual aroma that was believed to be pleasing to the gods, making it the ultimate choice for royal and priestly wigs. Its scent was not only luxurious but incredibly persistent, masking odors and repelling insects far more effectively than any local herb. From the cedar forests of Lebanon came another essential, the aromatic wood that was carved into elegant combs and storage chests. Cedar shavings placed in a wig box did more than just smell pleasant. Their potent natural oils were a lethal deterrent to moths and lice, protecting the precious hair inside from infestation during storage. A simple wooden comb from a local craftsman worked well enough, but a fine-toothed comb of imported cedar was a tool of both function and status, its wood naturally smoothing the hair cuticle as it passed through. Even the oils themselves were imports. While castor oil was local, the finest almond oil often came from the Levant, prized for its light texture and quick absorption, perfect for the elite who demanded a conditioned look without a heavy, greasy feel. This global pantry transformed daily care. A noblewoman's wig anointed with Punt's myrrh was not just fragrant, it was armored against the pests that plagued commoners. A prince storing his piece in a Lebanese cedar chest was employing a defense system unavailable to the masses. This reliance on trade created a stark divide, where the very effectiveness of your wig maintenance was a direct measure of your access to the world beyond Egypt's borders. The most flawless, long-lasting wigs were not just products of meticulous routine, they were monuments to economic power and global connection. The proof of these meticulous rituals is not locked in ancient texts, but sleeps in the dry, dark silence of tombs. Our understanding comes directly from the artifacts the Egyptians left behind, a treasure trove of combs, jars, and the wigs themselves. Take the simple wooden comb, found in the burial of a noblewoman. At first glance, it appears to be just a functional object, but modern science has looked closer. Residue analysis on these combs has detected microscopic traces of moringa oil and beeswax, confirming they were not just for detangling, but for applying those vital conditioners and styling aids. These tools were literally coated in the evidence of their daily use. Then there are the wigs that have survived the millennia, like the one belonging to Queen Meritamen. Found in her tomb, its human hair remains intricately braided and secured, a testament to the strength of the net cap construction. The fibers still hold a subtle sheen, likely from the last application of scented oil she received in life. These are not decaying relics, they are snapshots of a living tradition, frozen in time. Perhaps the most vibrant evidence comes from the walls of tombs and temples themselves. Look at any scene of daily life, and you will find the intimate act of grooming. A noblewoman sits calmly while her servant carefully parts her wig with a long, slender pin. In another image, a man holds a mirror, watching as a companion applies a scented cone to his head. These are not symbolic gestures. They are detailed, step-by-step illustrations of the beauty rituals we have been describing. The wall paintings show us the postures, the tools in hand, and the social context of this care. Every drop of oil, every pass of the comb, every braid is corroborated by physical proof. This was not a theoretical ideal, it was the polished reality of their world. That final stroke of the beeswax, a solution to ancient frizz, feels remarkably familiar. The core principles perfected by Egyptian artisans have not been lost to time, they have simply been rebottled. Their deep understanding of natural ingredients is experiencing a full-scale revival in our modern natural hair care movement. Consider their superstar conditioner, castor oil. Today, we see the same thick, nourishing oil celebrated in countless online tutorials and product lines, praised for its ability to seal in moisture and promote a brilliant shine, just as it did for a noblewoman along the Nile. Their use of light almond oil for daily conditioning without heaviness is mirrored perfectly in our contemporary love for argan and coconut oils, which are similarly valued for their quick absorption and ability to soften hair without leaving a greasy residue. The ancient Egyptians were masters of the pre-shampoo treatment, and we are now rediscovering the power of those same rituals. The parallels extend into the realm of scent. The scented pomades of the elite, infused with frankincense and lily, were the direct ancestors of today's hair perfumes and scented serums. They understood that hair was a primary vehicle for fragrance, a way to leave a lasting, personal impression in a room. Now, the market is filled with products designed to do exactly that, to make your hair not just look good, but to smell divine throughout the day. Even their detangling methodology has stood the test of centuries. The rule of starting at the tips with a wide-toothed comb and working upward to prevent breakage is a fundamental lesson taught by every modern hairstylist. They knew that patience and technique were more important than force, a philosophy that has become a cornerstone of caring for curly and textured hair today. This is not a coincidence, it is a testament to their timeless wisdom. They viewed wig maintenance not as a series of separate tasks, but as a holistic system of cleansing, conditioning, protecting, and styling, all with a profound respect for the raw materials. In our current shift away from harsh chemicals and toward plant-based, ingredient-conscious routines, we are not inventing something new. We are walking a path they laid down thousands of years ago, finally circling back to appreciate the elegant, effective power of nature's own pantry. You can actually weave this ancient wisdom into your own weekly routine. For a modern take on their daily ritual, begin each morning by gently combing your hair. Use a wide-toothed wooden comb to mimic their tools, starting carefully at the ends of your hair and slowly working upward to the roots. This simple act not only detangles but also distributes your scalp's natural oils, just as their castor oil did, providing a gentle shine and protecting your hair from daily wear. Once a week, it is time for the deep cleanse. Instead of natron, you can use a paste of bentonite clay, a powerful modern equivalent you can find in health stores. Mix a few tablespoons of the clay powder with enough water to create a smooth, spreadable consistency. Section your hair and apply this cool paste from the roots to the tips, massaging it in to absorb excess oil and environmental grime. Let it sit for about 15 minutes, then rinse thoroughly with cool water, feeling the incredible clean it leaves behind. The final, vital step is conditioning. Following their philosophy, you must replenish what the cleanse has removed. Once a week, after your clay wash, treat your hair to a luxurious soak with natural oils. Warm a small amount of pure castor oil or a lighter almond oil in your palms, then work it through your damp hair, focusing on the ends. For a truly royal treatment worthy of an Egyptian queen, add a teaspoon of raw honey to your oil, creating a humectant mask that will draw in moisture and leave your hair supple and radiant. Wrap your hair in a warm towel and let this ancient recipe work its magic for 30 minutes before rinsing. This simplified schedule transforms historical facts into a tangible, sensory experience, allowing you to feel the same satisfaction of nurturing your hair with the pure, effective ingredients they trusted. This bridge across millennia proves their methods were not just effective for their time, but remain a profound and elegant system of care today. The final stroke of the comb, the lingering scent of sacred oil. These were the quiet acts that wove a culture's deepest values into strands of hair and fiber. Our journey through the surprisingly complex world of Egyptian wig maintenance reveals a society where beauty, hygiene, and profound symbolism were inseparable threads in the same fabric. Every drop of moringa oil and every pass of the fine-toothed comb was a declaration, a commitment to preserving not just an object, but the very identity it projected. Their innovative spirit shines through in every solution, from the natron paste that lifted away grime to the beeswax that tamed the desert frizz, all sourced from the natural world they revered. This meticulous, daily devotion allowed a single wig to tell its powerful story for an entire lifetime, becoming a living heirloom. We truly hope you have enjoyed uncovering these ancient secrets with us. Tell us in the comments which maintenance tip fascinated you the most, and be sure to subscribe for more journeys into the enduring mysteries of the past.